Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Good morning. You're good.
Doing well, thank you.
All right. We will go ahead and get started with the presentation. My name is Morgan Pruitt, and I am the Outreach and Assessment Librarian here at CCCC. I am on the Harnett campus. As much as I'd like to share my video with you, it looks like, oh, there we go. I've got it working now. So feel free to drop any questions into the chat if you have them, and I'll be presenting with Samantha O'Connor, who's the Director of Library Services.
Hi, I'm Samantha O'Connor, and I am going to be working with Morgan on presenting this to you. Today we're going to be looking at some of the non-traditional resources that we have in the library. I think a lot of people on this call are familiar with our traditional research databases and our book catalog and things like that, but we really wanted to highlight some of those resources we have that may not have as much application directly for research projects and things like that, but that can be really useful for your students or for you or for building bridges between you and your students. So let's see. I think Morgan is sharing the screen. All right, so the big thing that we're going to talk about is how some of these resources that we look at today are going to help you to build relationships, where they're going to help you to reach out to students. They're going to help you to maybe help students with problems they come to you with for things not related to their classwork, and really just promote the idea of better communication between you and your students, lifelong learning, learning outside the classroom, and personal growth. And anything that we show you today, of course, you have full access to as faculty and staff, which means you can also use it for your own personal learning and growth. So we're going to be looking at three resources, and so we called this presentation TAG because the resources that we'll be looking at are Transparent Languages, Auto Repair Source, and Gale Interactive Human Anatomy. And I know that there's been some interest on campus on transparent languages specifically, so we're going to start there. And we're just going to take a look at a little bit of information about this. Erin, I think, will be sharing these slides after the presentation. So once you have access to them, if you click on this link here, it's going to take you to some detailed instructions for accessing this resource and for setting up an account. So Transparent Language is completely free. It is available to you as faculty and staff. It's available to your students. Basically, anyone that has a relationship with Central Carolina Community College does have access to this, but you do need to set up a personal account in order to track your progress. It's a language learning tool. It's similar to Duolingo, if you've ever used that, or our previous language learning tool, Mango Languages, if you're familiar with that. And so it walks you through a lot of different units and lessons and assessments and things like that. So you do need to set up an account in order to track your progress. And it is useful for learning how to communicate more effectively with your students who may not be native English speakers. And it's also is a useful tool for you to show to students who maybe need to brush up on English language skills or who are learning another language themselves. If they express an interest in that to you, then you can always show them this. So is it possible for me to switch to sharing my screen so that I can walk you through this? Yes, all right. So let me get out of my presentation. And we are going to just go all the way to the beginning and walk you all the way through how to get to transparent language. So for those of you who may not be familiar with how to access library resources, it's pretty simple. You go to the library link on the college's website. And from there, for this particular one and for most of our different resources, we're going to click on the Databases tab right here in the center of the page. There are a few different ways that you can get to each of our resources. So you could go to Find by Subject and look under the Languages section, and that's going to get you to where you need to go. Today, we're going to go through the A to Z list, though. So this is just a nice alphabetical list. And we are gonna, I don't know why I clicked on A. I need to click on D for transparent language. We're gonna come down here and just click on it, and this will take you right in. So this is one of the resources that we have that is available to us via NC Live. So if you have students who may be graduating, moving on to another university in the state, or who have access to a public library, they will continue to have access to transparent language after they are no longer part of the Central Carolina Community College group. So this is what I'm talking about when I say that you do need to have a personal account. When you get in here, you'll have the option to sign up. I've already signed up, so I'm just going to log in. It's completely free. Again, it's just a way to sort of track my progress. And this is my progress, which you can see is not very much. But I'm actually going to start by showing you what you'll see the very first time you come in. And that is a list of all of the languages that they have available. And I want to say it's like 80 something, but I actually don't know off the top of my head. Some of the things to note about some of the languages available is that oftentimes you'll have multiple dialects. You see Arabic has 4 dialects, French has 3, Spanish has 2. And so this is really helpful when you are working with a language that may be fairly different depending on where somebody grew up speaking it. Additionally, you'll also see that some of these have an option called Kids Speak. My daughter is actually working on the French Kids Speak right now, and she has a lot of fun with it. I can't say that she is actually speaking French, but she's having a good time. In order to access one of these languages, you really just click on it. So let's look at the French really quick, and this is what that's going to look like. You do have the option of choosing which dialect, but then you also have this really fantastic option, and I think this is where transparent language really goes above and beyond some of the other language learning tools that are out there, because you have the ability to learn it as an English speaker, but also to learn different languages as a native speaker of a different language. So if you have a student who is a native Spanish speaker and they're trying to learn French or Chinese or Arabic, then they can do that from the vantage point of their native language. And so that's one of the things that I think is really helpful about transparent language. Let's go ahead and look at what some of the lessons look like. So I'm going to come in here to Spanish, and I'm going to choose Latin American. And what I get to is my learning path. And so this is where you get sort of the lessons and units that you would learn in any sort of traditional language learning environment. So I have various units. Each unit ends with an assessment. And then within the units, there are multiple lessons. These lessons take a lot of different forms. So if I click on Learn here, you'll see what they look like. I'm not going to go too deep into this, though. A lot of them are an actual conversation. So you would follow it by reading, and you'd follow it by listening. There are some that require you to have a microphone so that you can then speak things back, and it will tell you where your pronunciation is correct, where it's not correct. It'll make you repeat things over and over again until you get it just right. It's actually a really great its tool for recording and analyzing your pronunciation is really strong. Believe me, it took me several days to get all the way through a couple of these because it kept making me repeat things. Let's go back. So in addition to the lessons themselves, you also have the ability to set a personal goal. And I have just completed my goal for the day simply by clicking on a lesson, because my goal is just to spend any amount of time in any language. You can get a little bit more ambitious than that, and you can say that you want to spend 60 minutes working on a language every day. You can go really in depth with this. And then you can set the goal, and you can have this lovely little meter that tells you how close you are to completing that goal. As you go through the lessons, vocabulary that you learn will populate in this little box here, which is just sort of a helpful place for you to go back and review. It's a helpful place for you to very quickly figure out what vocabulary you're supposed to know, so that you can make sure that you are actually up to where you're supposed to be with it. And then they have all these really wonderful little practice lessons. So these are not part of your units. They're not part of your assessments. They're a chance for you to do extra practice. Some of this is going to be pronunciation practice where you actually say it yourself. Some of it will be writing, some of it will be reading. They've got some matching games. They've got listening and comprehension. They really do have a lot of different things that can help you sort of supplement the regular learning that you get through your learning pathway. This is sort of the main meat of it. There are some additional resources, mostly in terms of this sort of word of the day within the language you've chosen, which is kind of a nice little feature. And then they have blog posts. And I've looked at some of these sort of social media resources. They're probably super helpful for some people. The thing that I found most helpful was actually down here, the Transparent Language online e-resources, because this is the textbooks. So you can do this completely without textbooks, but if you're the type of learner who really wants that sort of traditional language learning environment where you have a textbook and a workbook to work through, they do have those that integrate completely with these lessons. So it's not necessary in order to complete the lessons, but if it's a helpful resource for you and the way that you learn, that is an option that's available to you. And so that's something that I wanted to make sure you're aware of. And then of course here's Kids Speak. I'm not going to open it up because it will go right into it and it's really loud. But it's a really highly interactive version of the resource that's specifically aimed at children learning languages. And it seems to be a lot of fun from what I've witnessed. So I think that is pretty much transparent language. Are there any questions? Do people have anything that they want to see a little more in depth from here? Willie, did you have a question?
Yes, is the book free?
Yes, completely free.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, I'm going to stop sharing this screen. And if anyone, oh, yep, was there another question? All right, well, if anyone does have more questions about transparent language, we are always happy to walk you through it. Once you have the slides, you do have access to a little handout that Morgan has put together that will get you started in it. And then if you have additional questions or if you just kind of want somebody to walk you through it step by step, please reach out to me or Morgan and we are more than happy to. It's really helpful for you if you are trying to learn another language. It's also a helpful resource to point out to students who may be looking to do the same thing. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let Morgan take it from here.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. All right, taking just a minute. Okay, so our next part of our presentation is the A in TAG, and that is for Auto Repair Source. This is a new tool, but it's very practical for faculty and students, particularly in the Automotive Systems Technology program. But if you are someone who is perhaps unfamiliar with cars, or you know the student that is having trouble with their own car, then this can sometimes be a great resource. This is much more independent and practical, but we're not saying that we're mechanics, but what we are saying is that this can be useful for students who are looking for very specific resources on their car, or if you're looking for specific resources on your car. Whereas if you looked on YouTube, you might find maybe an example, but who knows if it's the exact question that you have or the exact model of car that you have. And so this can be very useful, especially if a student maybe, sends you a message, I can't get to class because my battery is dead. You can kind of direct them to this source, and many of the resources are going to show you how to change a battery with some diagrams. So I'm actually going to show you how that works right now. So I'm going to exit out of full screen, And again, we are here at the library homepage, and we'll come over here to the library tab and we'll click on that. And this is going to be under databases as well. And when you click on databases, the easiest way to get to it is A to Z listing. So we'll start there, just like you would with tag, except this time you will click on A. So you'll have your little drop-down menu, click on A, and your automotive repair source is going to be right here, right under the arts and humanities. So if you click on this, what you'll see is a very kind of simple screen. But what you can do is you can select your year, whatever year your car is, the make. Once you have selected a year, it will provide more options, a model, and then the engine. So I'm going to give an example. This is a car that I was kind of playing around with just to see what's out there. And you can see there's all kinds of cars. And as someone who doesn't know anything about cars, this makes a lot of the interaction that I have much easier. So 2016 Ford, and then I can pick a model, and I'll choose the Escape S. And then in this case, there's one engine, but sometimes you'll have cars with multiple different kinds, and then you or the student can choose whichever one works for you or is the correct one. You'll notice here they have things on the side that relate to the various parts of the car. You have airbags, brakes, cooling system, fluids, maintenance schedule. So you can read through any of these based on what you need. So I'm going to look at the battery for battery replacement. So here you actually have battery specifications, so you or the student can know which battery you would likely need when you go into an O'Reilly's or an AutoZone. You can say, I'm looking for this very specific battery, and you're able to talk a little bit more with a little bit more information with the person that's helping you. And then you can actually replace your own battery. It says here the replacement procedures, and it will walk you through the various steps and strategies. And then here are some figures that if the person that you are working with, whether it's you or the student, is more of a visual learner, you can navigate through a visual resource. The other thing that's really neat about this is that if you like to hold your resource, you can also print whatever it is that you're looking at. You can take it through a battery test if you would like. And then there are some other kind of smaller things you can look at, like if you were looking at the brakes, you can get more and more specific, more and more detailed. So if you're looking for a brake pad, and then it'll walk you through that. There are some scenarios, like I have a very old car, where it doesn't show me how to replace my battery, but it does tell me how simple or how challenging that particular replacement will be. And so one will say like it requires C knowledge. So meaning that anyone, even me who has no car knowledge, can do this activity. Or it will be B, a moderate level of knowledge, or A, like you really need to take this to an expert or a specialist. Kind of helps you to decide where, if you really need to go out and spend your money at the mechanic at this point, or if you can kind of wait a little bit longer and do the work yourself. So it is a very straightforward resource. Just put your car in, you get the information, then you can use the diagrams to explore. You can also use this search bar up here. If maybe you're not seeing something that you want to see, you can search for, in this case, a battery. And then it's going to tell you a little bit more that will allow you to look. Okay, I want to look at the labor. I want to look at a battery or a charge test. So there we go right there. Here's the skill code. Requires a person with limited skills. So you can charge or test your battery, and you don't even have to be a mechanic. And We're not saying that we are mechanics or that we would recommend that you would just go all out and fix your car all by yourself, but it can be very useful in a pinch and helpful in navigating the appropriate resources. Does anybody have any questions about this particular resource? Okay, if you do, if you can think of anything, feel free to drop it in the chat, or if you want to make an appointment to discuss this more, we definitely can do that. That'll be at the end of the session. You can find the information on how to do that. All right, so our last material that we're going to cover, our last resource that we'll cover, is Gale Interactive Human Anatomy. So this is got an introduction for an overview of Gale Interactive Human Anatomy. There's a video there that will walk you through kind of what we're doing here today. So if you just need a little bit more practice or you want to watch the video in your free time, that link will lead you to that. And so when you get the slides, you can access that video from there. This is a great resource for nursing and health technologies. It is a much more specific curriculum library resource, meaning that for the most part, if you're not in the nursing and health technologies, you may not necessarily use this quite as often, but it can still be very interesting. I go in here and learn all kinds of new things all the time, and it's particularly relevant for visual learners, especially if learners are having a hard time understanding from a textbook, from a very flat image, what you're trying to explain about the human body, because Gale Interactive actually has 3D models and prints that you can make, or you can look at a model visually through the database. This is very useful in also helping students find academic research, find books and materials, and then also practice their knowledge. There are quiz questions that they can utilize. So I will show that to you now as well. So I'm going to go back to the CCCC homepage just because I want to show you again how to get to the database. You've seen me do it multiple times. You just saw us do it multiple times, but feel like it will be useful again. Have a little bit of trouble getting there, but we'll pull that up anyway. Okay. So again, you would go to the home tab, the library tab on the home page, and you would go back to the databases tab. You can find this resource through the A to Z listing, but I actually think it's easier to find it by subject in this case. Because it is a very specific nursing and health technology resource, then you can find it under the nursing and health technologies databases. So there it is, the Interactive Human Anatomy database. We'll click on that. All right, so you will see this on your screen, and when you enter into the homepage of Gale Interactive Human Anatomy, it will typically have some curated content in the middle. There'll be a search bar at the top, as well as some options for help or browsing activities. And then at the bottom, you can search by a particular system, by a region, or looking at 3D models. So we will start by just looking at a model itself, but if you have any questions about the 3D print models, we can definitely come back to that as well. So you can refine by category if you would like. They have 4 curated ones here, same way with the region, but if you wanted to view all of the categories, you could. You could just click on this link here. Let's go with muscular. Actually, let's go with circulatory. So you can see here, anything that's under the circulatory system is going to come up in the results. And there is a lot of diverse content. So you can look at joints, you can look at certain regions, you can look at certain muscles, So I'm going to look at the heart anatomy. And this particular database is useful because it provides you with a model that you can not only interact with by answering questions about it and reading the information that they provide, but you can also take the model apart. So yes, you can click on it, you can play with it, but you can also take it apart and put it back together. This is kind of fun and kind of also like makes me a little squeamish at the same time, but it's kind of exciting to be on that border of playing with these particular models. So you'll notice here to the side, there is information about the model itself, particularly about the heart. And this will allow students to look at reference materials to get more specific information. Perhaps they want to know more about the circulatory system. They can click on that link and it will take them to some information about that system. They can read through this information here on the side. Again, there's information about heart attacks and blood flow. So this provides an overview of whatever the model is about. It tells you where it comes from, and then at the bottom there are related subjects. So I will come back to this in a minute, but after the student plays with the model, they may interact with the model and they might say, oh, this is really interesting, I want to learn more. Especially if they read something like about heart rate. They can then come down here and explore this related subject. Under each model will be related activities that you can then explore with other models. So notice here, each resource, whatever body part or region that you're looking at, is going to have a model, and then it's going to explain some questions here about whatever it is that the model is covering. And so there's arrows on the side that will then allow you to navigate through the different slides. You can move these little tabs around here if you needed to move this out of the way so that you wanted to show a student the structural terms and you wanted to take each piece apart. You could move it around like this so that students could see exactly which piece you're talking about and where the arrows are pointing. And then of course you can always put it back together as well, and the model will show you where to put it. It'll highlight in green when you've gotten to the right spot. Just put that right back there. And then the model, you can play with it, you can zoom in or you can zoom out, depending on whatever it is that you or the student might need as you're learning about this resource or as you're teaching about it. Once you go through the slides that are informative and that explain the resource itself and its various models and content, keep going, keep looking through, and see, you can see that the models change each time. So as the models change, you can move things around and return them to the spot from where you got them. And each of the links of each lesson is different depending on whatever the lesson is covering. So once you get to the end of the informative content, then you will get a quiz. And the students can take this quiz to practice the information that they have learned. This isn't connected to the grade book in any way, but it's good practice to help students learn a little bit more about what the resource, the information that they've just read. So they can click on the chamber of the heart, and then it will tell them if they've gotten it right or if they've gotten it wrong, and then they can get it right or wrong. I'm just going to pass on this question because I'm clearly not getting it right. And then you can also have questions like multiple choice. And then in this case, you'll be able to label that information. So there's a lot of different kinds of activities that students can do to practice what they have learned. And then when, let's say that a student is done with the model, they are ready to move on to look at maybe heart rate. They're like, okay, I've learned what I need to learn. I want to look at more information about the heart rate. They can come down here to related subjects and click on the chosen related subject. And once they do that, they will be provided with some additional information, including books, academic articles, and news. And this will tell them a little bit about what the content is, as well as if, in this case, if an academic journal has been peer reviewed, as well as the journal that it was retrieved from, and the year that it was published. So this was published in 2019. It's a report. And that can help students if they're trying to find a specific piece of information about a very specific part of the body or feature of the model that they saw. There's news articles as well. So this can be very useful in helping students to get started, whether they're learning or developing their knowledge in some other way or shape or form. Does anybody have any questions about that? I'll show the 3D models in just a minute, but anything about the actual model here or the content that we just talked about? Okay, well, if you think of anything, feel free to drop it in the chat. So we'll go back to the Gale Interactive Human Anatomy homepage, and you will see down here the 3D printable models, and you can browse the STL files. So you can just click Browse STL Files, and you can look through these various options. There's the brain, there's an animal cell. This can be useful if students want to hold something physically in their hands. They can do so with these models. So you would just download the file by clicking on the link. It would be there, and then you could submit that file for printing. We have a printer here at the Harnett campus, and if you have questions about that, you are welcome to either email me directly or you can email the library, and we can set up a way for you to either request a print or to get more information about 3D printing. So there's my email, and we can definitely chat about that, or you can email the library. But we are happy to help you if you would like to print something for your classes so that students can look at a handheld object for learning. Are there any questions about that? Anything else? Anything anybody wants to see? Okay. So, oh yeah. Oh, great. And we are happy to help if you would like more help with this resource. We'll definitely sit down and work with you on that. Any chemistry? Can you explain a little bit more, Keisha, what you mean when you ask any chemistry? We can definitely look at the heart valve and see what's. Oh, I see. In this particular database, it's mostly the human anatomy. It's the human body. So when we look for the heart valve, we get these three options. If you wanted to look at specific structures, they might be located in the heart anatomy or the heart circulation or even the lung anatomy. You could explore and see. Each lesson is going to cover something different, Brenda, so it might be in there depending on what kind of content you want to see. Molecular modeling, I am not sure. Samantha, do you know? I don't think it would be covered in this database.
No, I don't think we'll find that in here, but there might be an open access one. Let me check my list real quick.
Okay. If you have any more questions though, or you want to see a demonstration or learn more about the particular resource, or you can't find something that you are looking for and you would like help locating it, you can always set up an appointment. You can scan this QR code and set up an appointment that way, or if you just want to email us directly or GChat or stop by the office, you certainly can. We are always happy to see you in whatever format works best for you. So feel free to reach out and we'll definitely help answer some questions or set up tutorials or model these resources for you.
I know there were questions about about getting sort of similar things for some different areas, chemistry and molecular modeling. We don't currently have anything like that. There are some open access resources. I put the links in the chat. But if that is something in those fields or a different field altogether that you feel like your students could really use, reach out to us and we can look in to see if there is a resource out there that we could subscribe to. We prefer to put our money towards things we know people will use. So if we hear from faculty that their students could really use something, then we'd rather subscribe to that than something that's not getting a lot of use. So feel free to reach out to us with those types of suggestions as well. Gale is definitely something we pay for. But it has one of our best costs per use of all of our resources. So. Well, thank you to everybody who attended. I hope that you saw something useful in here. And as Morgan said, please reach out to us with questions. We're happy to go into more detail on any of these and help get you started on things. Oh, Janet, did you have a question?
Yeah, could you please tell me again who has access to this? Do you have to be full-time faculty or full-time student or degree-seeking student, or can anybody who, say, for example, they want to audit a class, as long as they have access to the portal, do they have access to these resources?
Yes, if you have access to the portal, you have access to these resources. Additionally, transparent language is something that's through NC Live, which means that if you have access to a library in the state of North Carolina, you have access to that. So, you know, if you were to graduate or leave Central Carolina, but you have a public library that you're able to use, you would have access to transparent language through that public library or through a university that you transfer to.
Okay, and with transparent language, you would set up your own account and then you can track your progress, right?
Correct.
Now, if I wanted my students to access this, can I access their progress? Because could I have them do this for extra credit or even for requirements and be able to look at what they've done?
We had a previous language learning tool that had that. I don't think transparent language does. I will look into it and give you a complete answer on that, but I don't think it does. What you could do is have them send you a screenshot of their progress, or they may be able to, when you complete an assessment, you can download that, and so they could send you the certificate of it. There's also a transcript option that will actually give you a full transcript of everything that you've done in a lesson and create a report. And so they could create that report and send it to you. But you wouldn't, I don't think you have the ability as an instructor to go in and check their progress yourself, but there are definitely a number of ways that they can share their progress with you for extra credit.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Debbie, for that comment. Having your classes come visit is always a really fun experience for me too, because they're always really interactive and excited to be there. So. All right. Well, if there are no more questions, Morgan, is there anything that we have forgotten that we want to throw in at the end?
Not that I can think of.
All right. Well, in that case, I think we're done. But please feel free to come by if you do think of a question in an hour or a week or a month. We're here, and thank you so much for attending.